Twin sons from different mothers with a passion for voiceover recording technology and the desire to make recording easy for voice actors everywhere. Together in one place, George Whittam, the home studio engineer to the stars, a Virginia Tech grad with an unmatched knowledge of all the latest gear and technology in voiceover today. Dan Leonard, the home studio master, a voice actor with over 30 years experience in broadcasting and recording, and a no-holds-barred, myth-busting attitude for teaching you how easy it is. Together, finally, to bring you all the latest technology, the superstars of voiceover today, and leading the discussion on how to make the most of your voiceover business. This is VoiceOver Body Shop. And now, live from their super secret multimedia studio in Sherman Oaks, California, here are George Whittam and Dan Leonard.
Hi, I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And we're still in the same place, but this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
Or VO.
BS.
There you go. All right. All right, so why am I in a different place tonight? Well, we're in the same place, but tonight we have a roundtable, one what we've been waiting to do for a while. But before we get to that, we have to thank our sponsors, because it's important to thank our sponsors.
Very important, because they allow us to have all these fun tools and gadgets that make this show happen and allow you to see a hole in the middle of Dan's throat tonight.
That's right. There it is. I'm the Invisible Man! Anyway. But we'd like to thank Harlon Hogan over at voiceoveressentials.com, Edge Studio,
and Source Elements,
and VoiceOver Extra, and VO2GoGo, which we will talk about a little bit later. Mm-hmm. Tonight we're going to do one of our favorite things to do, and that's a roundtable. We have some great guests tonight, and we're going to talk to them about audio stuff. But that's more specifically, I think we're going to concentrate for the first part of the show on microphones, because we have some stuff that we want to show you about microphones.
Yeah.
But why don't we introduce our guests first?
Let's do that.
All right. On my immediate left here.
Is that my cue?
That's your cue. There he is.
The magic of television.
That's right.
I've been mystically transported into the studio out of my own home studio.
A gentleman we've had on our show many times, but this is the first time we have actually physically met.
This is crazy.
I know. Juan Carlos cool. Bagnell, welcome to the show.
I'm super stoked to be here, guys. This is great.
Great to have you here. Joining us from Dallas, Texas, our good buddy and producer, Cliff Zellman. Cliffy.
Yay, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Great to be here.
Joining us from Bloomfield, New Jersey, if I am correct.
Yes.
All right. It's Uncle Roy Yokelson.
Do you guys have like a new sticker I can put over this
we'll send
old
you a new
logo?
We'll get new mugs. We'll send you new mug.
Now, don't modify it. It'll lose its value.
That's right.
Oh, you're right.
No, that's not
when
a
I
collector's
die,
item.
when I give donate.
Hey, look who else is here.
Yes.
Oh, you made it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And joining us from Denver, Colorado, our good friend Jordan Reynolds.
Hello.
What's
up, guys?
All right. Very good.
Glad you made it, man.
All right. We're all here, and that's the most important thing. It's an Audio Masters Roundtable, but I'd like to go around to each one of our guests and ask them a little bit about themselves so they can actually prove to you that they might actually know what they're talking about, which might be kind of cool. Juan, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you here.
What brought me here was you guys.
You.
Yeah, you invited me, so we can get that one out of the way first. My name's Juan Carlos Bagnell. I post on Twitter as some audio guy. I wrote a blog for a little while. The blog's still standing, but it's kind of defunct. But I'm a commercial casting director in sunny Los Angeles, California, and then I've also done a lot of work in trying to dispel some of the myths around home recording along like what you guys have been doing through this show, trying to get better educational opportunities out there for people interested in doing their own project and home studio recordings, things like that. So I'm always stoked to come and chat with you guys because I think we do a pretty good job of sort of speaking truth to that common dogmatic notion that people have about home recording.
Yeah, lots of mythology out there. Jordan Reynolds. Out there in Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. And are you? We won't even go there. Tell us a little bit about yourself. No, you got Uncle Roy there. There you go.
Oh, is it hot?
Yeah, bring
There
it
it
down.
is.
You should know. You designed it.
Hey, I blame this Zoom app.
That's a hot mic.
You're
That is
fine.
better.
You're coming in 5x5, my friend.
Yes. Talk to us, Jordan.
All right, is that better? Is that fine?
Perfect.
Okay. My name's Jordan. I don't know how to set levels. I'm a voice talent for a living. I do demo production and audio consulting. I love doing it. It's fun, and I'm really creative in my abouts.
What?
All right.
I like beer.
Yes. Uncle Roy,
Yes, sir.
tell us a little bit about yourself for those of you out there who don't know you yet, which I think is virtually impossible.
There's one or two in the chat room that I don't know. I'm the
Newbies.
senior member of this group. I've been doing this since I got a job as a messenger in a recording studio in New York City in 1976. I hate to tell you that, when most of you weren't born.
It's true. I wasn't born yet.
That's right. See that? You're guys are the baby. No,
I was out of high school.
I call my what I do voiceover support services. So whether it's voiceover coaching, demo production, home studio, we all of us kind of cross in each other's services that we do. So and I'm just here to make sure everything runs smoothly and sounds great, and I'm just here to improve your sound, make you sound.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yes. And finally, one of our dear friends joining us from Dallas, Clifford Zellman, who I confuse constantly with my Aunt Zelda Feldman and
I get all
cousin
that
Cliff
email.
Feldman. It's
All of that email, Dan.
I know it's kinda
It's true. I've met both of them. You're the spitting image of both.
They're better dressers. My name is Cliff. For those of you that don't know me, I've been in the business going on almost 40 years. I was a rock and roll recording engineer in LA from 97 to about 91. Then got very much involved with recording animation. Did a lot of Saturday morning cartoons for Saban and Deacon Disney for 5 years. Decided to leave LA to raise my beautiful family, who is now hopefully on their way out. My daughter just graduated UNT Saturday. She got her diploma.
Yeah.
Right on.
From 1995 until this day, I have been the director of audio production, creative client services for Radio Vision. We are a very aggressive, relatively hardcore ad agency, full service ad agency, audio, video, digital, billboard, print. And the very first spot that I did had a 1995 in it, and today I did my first 2016. So that's a lot.
all right.
Nice.
Official.
I have my studio at home. I've been working in my home studio for 14 years now.
And what about DVA?
Oh, yes. Also, the Dallas Voice Acting Meetup Group is a meetup group I started in 2006. We have roughly over about 950 members. It's been kind of quiet, but we're going to join in with a couple other meetup groups in the North Texas area, and it's going to be terrific. And right now, I'm just kind of helping people come into town that want to do some wonderful work with some very, very talented people here in Dallas. And I'm sure you guys know quite a few of them.
I'm sure.
And thank
we
you
do.
very much for having me come.
Oh, our pleasure. Our pleasure. All right, let's talk microphones. At least for the majority of the show. And of course, if you have a question for any of our fantastic guests or want to throw a topic out for the
and I
Audio
do demos,
Masters
too.
Roundtable, throw it into the chat room. And I believe Shelly Avellino is in there tonight, controlling
Shelley.
the chat
is.
room.
And Giacomo.
yes,
Shout out to
and-
Giacomo from the DVA. Woo.
Yes.
That's Scott Chambers. too.
Yes. But I need to direct this first to Uncle Roy, because you're the senior member here. Can you tell us why there are so many different types of microphones and models of microphones?
I'd say there are a lot of different models of microphones. As we all know, there are only three basic types: dynamic, ribbon, and condenser. And then within those, they can have different polar patterns of cardioid, figure 8, omnidirectional. And then, why are there so many? Well, I think because these days it's so cheap for them to manufacture, and people are trying to emulate the more expensive microphones with more affordable technology these days. The flavors of the decade or year. Everybody wants a 416, and everybody wants an 87 and a 103 and a 102. Those are the and a CAD 100, and some of those are on our shootout today, which I'm happy to. I was a little surprised at some of the results, so we'll talk about that. But
Yeah.
I think we're always trying to improve sound. And Jordan can attest to that because he was instrumental in creating one of the new microphones.
So why don't we go to Jordan? Tell us a little bit about why you think there are so many different models and what went into the development stuff you did.
Well, I mean, just ever since the home studio market came to fruition, I mean, companies just jumped on it, and then equipment just got cheaper. Technology is more affordable. Advances are made. And so it's, I mean, there's just so many companies that are making mics that you wouldn't, none of them come to mind, but there's just so many boutique mics to begin with, actually mic manufacturers like Roswell, for example, they aren't terribly complicated, pieces of equipment. They've been around for a long time, microphones. So I think just everyone's kind of trying to take a piece of the pie. And there are so many niches of media. There's voiceover, there's different kinds of voiceover, and there's so many different kinds of music out there that people design different mics for different niches too. So I think my biggest reason is just it's a cash cow. People can make money, and I think podcasts probably contributed to one of the biggest uprisings in at least, affordable microphones, like the $200 below microphone range. So, and what when designing, when I designed this mic or helped co-designed it, it's kind of the same stuff I've said before, but in short, we wanted something in the voiceover industry that was made just specifically for voiceover. And we found out what characteristics of most mics that are popular in voiceover that people didn't like. We already knew what they did like. We tried to incorporate that, but things were, a lot of mics are too bright. They're just too sibilant. And a lot of them are too boomy in small VO booths that we all work in because it's just a box. So we took all those into account. We tried to, appease to the masses, if you will, as much as possible, and designing the sonic characteristic of this, but also making it very high quality, not being like super cheap and overly fabricated. It's all put together in San Francisco. So, yeah,
American made. Cool. Well, George and I did a little thing last week where they sent us a box of microphones.
Yeah, B&H.
B&H, our good friends in New York City, not open on Saturday. And they sent us a bunch of really cool stuff. So the two of us sat down here in the VoiceOver Body Shop studio and did a little bit of a mic shootout just so you can hear the difference of some really cool mics. So you ready to roll that, kiddo?
Might as well.
Go for it.
So the mics for this shootout, the target is a $300 to $500 microphone suitable for voiceover. And in the shootout, we have the Blue Baby Bottle, CAD Equitech E100S, the Sennheiser MK4, the AKG C214, the King B large diaphragm condenser mic made by Neat Microphones, a new company, the Lewitt LCT 240 condenser microphone, the SE 2200A2 cardioid condenser mic, as well as the Audio-Technica AT4040. And since Dan had on hand a couple of venerable mics that we should also shoot out with, we also tested it with a Harlon Hogan VO1A, comes in right at 300, a Neumann TLM 103, which comes in way up above that, and a Sennheiser 416. So we'll call it a Baker's 10. Wait a minute, that's 11 mics. Anyway, let me squeeze them all in. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to have cuts of Dan on each of these mics where he works at 2 different proximities. So you can hear them at different locations, one about 8 to 10 inches, one about 4 to 5 inches away. At the end, I'll also give you a link to where you can download the actual audio file of all of these mics cut together rapidly with markers, so it makes it a little bit easier for you to compare A to B to C, because they're all, subtle. Some of them are hard to hear the differences. But anyway, here we go. Here's our somewhat scientific test of 11 different voiceover mics in less than 10 minutes. Go.
This is a blue baby bottle. There's no settings on this mic. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is a CAD E100S. It is set flat and no pad. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is a Sennheiser MK4 studio condenser mic. There is no settings on this particular model. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is an AKG C214. It is set to flat and no pad. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is a neat King B. Very unusual looking microphone. There's no settings on it. Let's see what it sounds like. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is a Lewitt LTC 240. It is set at 0 dB pad, and there is no, it's flat. We've also noticed this thing has a slightly lower output than other mics. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. Thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is an SE Electronics SE2200A2C, flat and no pad. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead us down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is an Audio-Technica 4040, set flat, no pad. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is a Harlon Hogan VO1A Signature Series mic manufactured by MXL. From 10 inches, there are moments that define us all. Bits of time, alone, or stitched together over time, that help us to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead down to an uncharted pathway, or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is a Neumann TLM 103. There's no settings on this mic. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or the end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself. This is a Sennheiser 416 shotgun mic. There are moments that define us all, bits of time, alone or stitched together over time, that help to shape our being, that make us, us. They can lead us down an uncharted pathway or push us beyond a place we once thought unattainable. They don't always mark the beginning or end of a journey. The moment is often, perhaps more often than not, the journey itself.
All right. Try to make that a smooth transition. I think I did okay. But anyway, there's a nice swath of mics, and we had our panel. At least some of us got to listen to them today.
But
and
wait
talk
a minute,
about
wait a
them.
minute. Let me interrupt. What a great job Dan did of reading that stuff.
Stop it.
I mean,
you
come
guys.
on. Those were some beautiful reads, Mr. Leonard. Well done.
But we did have some of the panel had a chance to listen to these offline and get a closer listen. So we're going to share some notes, talk about this a little bit, and then we'll go into some more topics. But we don't want to soak up the entire evening on this because we could easily have one show that does nothing but tearing apart these 8 mics. But Dan, I'll leave it to you. How do we want to handle this?
Well, why don't we take a break? Since we do
Sounds
have
good.
paying sponsors.
Yes, we do have sponsors.
We would very much like to have their message heard. So why don't we go off to there first, and we'll be right back with our great panelists, and we'll talk about this mic shootout, and of course take your questions a little bit later on, right after this. So don't go away here on VoiceOver Body Shop.
VO Studio Tech. Recording made simple.
Hi, I'm Peter McHugh.
This is Jim Tasker from Los Angeles, California.
Hi, this is Bill Ratner in Los Angeles.
Hi, this is Scott Rummel here in Yorba Linda, California.
Hi, my name is Rick Wasserman.
Hi, this is Tom Kane.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, my name is Zurich.
Hi, I'm Mary McKittrick.
Randy Thomas chiming in.
Hi, this is Joe Szymanski.
Hey, this is Rick Robles.
Hi, my name is John Patrick Armstrong.
I was turned on to George by none other than Don LaFontaine, who always swore by his health.
George is absolutely awesome.
ISDN, Source Connect, Phone Patch, FTP, you name it, George has set it up.
It's really the best thing I've ever done for myself. I feel free, safe, fearless, like anything is possible in here.
Unless you like to look for opportunities to waste time, call George.
And he did all of that, long distance over the phone and the internet.
I'm very happy with George, and I cherish him.
Thanks, George. You make it easy.
Man, there's one show that I can't miss. It's called VOBS. And a lot of people are like, VOBS? What is that? Man, it's BS about VO. And I love VO. How much BS is going to be in this show? There's only one way to find out, baby.
And we're back. But before we move on with this stunning discussion about microphones, which I'm really excited about, I have to tell you about SourceElements.com. Source Elements has joined us as a sponsor to tell you all about their products, namely their Source Connect software. If you are a voice actor that has to connect to other studios and you work sometimes ISDN, or maybe you haven't crossed into the ISDN land and you're thinking of being able to serve customers that customarily work on ISDN, Source Connect is probably going to be the way to go. Their software allows you to connect between studios and provide high-quality streaming audio bidirectionally so that you can feel like you're right there in the studio with them. The quality is really, really good. The signal is synced and sample synced. In other words, you can work to picture like ISDN studios are accustomed to doing, and everything stays absolutely in sync. I don't think there's anything else out there right now that is really, truly capable of doing that. It also has the ability to replace audio that may have gotten dropped along the way. It is the internet, and if you lose packets or drops of bits of audio, it has the capability of replacing those in the background seamlessly. Pretty amazing stuff that nobody else, I believe, is doing at this time. So if that sounds like something that could be usable in your studio, go over to sourceelements.com and sign up for a free 15-day trial with their software. You can use it right away. You just have to have an iLock key, which you can buy on Amazon or wherever, and you just have to have that iLock key, and you can start using Source Connect right away. They also have Source Connect Now, and you can check that out at now.sourceelements.com, which is a totally free version of Source Connect that works on Google Chrome web browser. And it's a new thing that's starting to get some traction, but you can start using it immediately with your clients and customers that want to be able to record and listen to you in high quality. So sourceelements.com, we appreciate your support. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. And back to you, Dan.
Why, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be anywhere.
And I'll turn on your mic.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome.
My brilliance just gone out the window.
This studio's fancy. You can turn the mics on.
I know. It's really good. Yeah. You'll notice I'm wearing my Telefunken shirt tonight.
Yeah, I love it.
It's perfect for what we're doing.
So you're not going to be biased to any individual microphone.
You'll notice we didn't have one of the $10,000 Telefunkens in that particular one. I don't even think they have those at B&H. Well, they can probably get
They
them.
might, yeah.
Probably get their hands on one, I'm sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
Next time.
This was the $300 to $500 range price.
No, the Telefunkens.
But tell me you didn't want to just throw Manly into the middle of that video, though.
Yeah.
Tell me you didn't want to just in the middle, here's an AKG C5000 or something like that.
But that's the point here, Juan Carlos. It's an interesting thing. Now, the fact of the matter is you listen to all of those, and can you really tell the difference between all of those?
Well, I'm glad you guys. I'm glad you guys set up the shootout, because for a long time I was very anti-shootout. I think when we're trying to help people make purchasing decisions, when we're trying to inform voice talent, when we're trying to work with people for what microphones they might spend their own hard-earned money on, I think a lot of people rush to shootouts to inform a purchasing decision, which isn't necessarily going to work for their voice, their space.
Right.
So it really shouldn't come as a surprise when we hear criticisms from people like, I could barely hear any difference between all those mics. A number of those mics are recording in a very similar cardioid pattern. They're recording the same talent, and they're recording in the same space. So what we're going to start dealing with are very fine nuances, super fine gradations of color, which by the time we throw this stuff up on the internet, once we start consuming it on different pairs of headphones, that kind of playback can be a little unpredictable, but it's going to be very, very nuanced.
I like to call it
changes are.
Shades of mauve.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I call it.
No, totally. It's like when you go to a Home Depot and it's like, well, is this mother of pearl or is this ecru? You we're dealing with very, very minor changes, especially when we're trying to keep other factors similar. So in this mid-range price point, we're sitting here and listening to all this stuff together, and we're as likely to talk about how much we dislike a pop filter as we are to say that mic handled proximity effect in a slightly more aggressive fashion. But we're still ultimately hearing the same talent in the same space with very similar recording patterns, so it shouldn't be a surprise to people when the 416 sticks out. And I think that's one of the reasons why the 416 becomes a desirable mic for so many people, because it's one of the few mics they will actually hear more of a difference on. And so when you hear 8 examples of the same shape, all of a sudden this one stands out. It's going to tweak the ear. The ear is going to have something a little bit more to grasp onto those differences, and maybe that's better, maybe that's worse.
Yeah,
but
it was just because we had. I mean, it was because we had those few extra mics. I sort of called them control mics. The VO1A fell into the category, but the other two are obviously at a different price class.
With a placebo mic.
Placebo mic,
right,
yeah. It just gives some perspective, maybe. You know?
But that's also why I was happy to see mics like the 214, which I think is very underrepresented in this conversation for voice talent. You know, it's half of a 414, and that's one of my go-to baseline mics. I understand the sound of the 414 really well, and that criticism off the air, you guys couldn't hear in internet land. But the same thing with the AT4040. You know, it's just some people are going to call it plain, but it's just a very workhorse. We understand that mic. It's been around for so long. It's not going to tickle the ear in the same way that, you know, like the B, like that King B might. You know, that was a very different color for a large diaphragm condenser than the rest of that shootout.
Large mic to start.
Large diaphragm condenser.
Large microphone.
Can I just say something?
Go for it,
please.
For the folks like us in the roundtable, the nuances and the details are what are the big picture for us.
Yeah,
you know, that's what makes the big picture. And whether or not the average talent or average listener can hear the difference, it doesn't matter. And then it's very true. I mean, the control part of that test was same talent, same space, same copy. That Dan was pretty darn consistent. But as you said, everybody in their own space. You can't just say, well, Dan sounded great on a C214. I better run out and buy one. Everybody's voice is different.
Yeah. Cliff, now you work with a lot of different talent, and they don't all use the same microphone. What did you think, and how do you deal with people with different microphones? Or is it simply a matter of, and I'm throwing a lot of questions in here, is it simply a matter of that's the sound that you have? And it's not necessarily a bad one. It's just different.
Well, I'll tell you, I made notes on every single microphone.
Outstanding.
Let's hear.
Let's hear them.
But I don't want to do that yet. But to answer your question, you know what, Dan, it's really their sound. You know, I'm not responsible for creating somebody's sound on that level. So, most of the microphones of the people that I use on a consistent basis are pretty high-end microphones. A lot of Lawsons, a lot of Neumanns, a lot of AKGs. But I was very impressed, and I think that this is a really great shootout that you did. And Roy's right about the control part. And as far as the differences, man, I thought they were night and day. I mean, I was just appalled at some of the differences, especially
appalled.
I love that word.
Especially the way they treated proximity, which was really, really interesting. And Dan, I know what mic is your mic, and we'll get to that in a bit. But with that said, I thought it was a great shootout. Let's talk about each mic. If y'all want to, maybe we can show it once and do a quick little run through, or however y'all want to do it.
We can.
Well, queuing to each mic is going to be very challenging. I wasn't set up for that tonight. So what I would like to do, though, is maybe at the end of the show, we'll make sure that everybody gets a link to the raw wave file audio that all these gentlemen get to hear. And also that audio is available on my Whittam's World video. So the original post of this video is on my Whittam's World video feed. So if you go to YouTube, type in Whittam's World and 75, because that's the episode number of that video. There is a link in there that will take you to the raw audio for those that want to play along at home. So anyway, that's the best thing I can do from short notice.
All right. Well, I mean, when it comes to using a microphone in my studio, I mean, I have my favorites, but as I tell everybody, you can't audition a mic in a store.
Yeah,
I mean, I love how we see this. You know, you go to a conference and the mic manufacturers show up there. Here, listen to this one. Don't you sound great on that? Well, it goes back to what you always say about Don LaFontaine, and it was like, what mic did he use? It didn't matter.
Whatever one they put in front of him.
That's right, because he sounded fabulous no matter what. And again, it's what's your sound. All of these mics at this particular price point, I mean, there are certainly differences in them, but do they make someone sound worse or better? And does that affect the way you do your read? Jordan, what do you think about that?
He's unmuting his mic.
No, can you repeat? Be more specific in what you're trying to say.
Well, the The question is that does the microphone really change the way you do a read? I mean, people are always saying, should I get this mic? Should I get that mic? And it's like, it's not about the mic so much as it is your performance.
No, I totally agree. It comes down to the performance. It's kind of like you give Jimi Hendrix, if he was alive, and a piece of crap $50 guitar, and he's going to kill it. So at the end of the day, it is about the performance. But you asked an interesting question. Will the person's performance change depending on the sound characteristic of the microphone? That depends on how sensitive your ears are and how acclimated you are to being tuned in to the sonic sounds of microphones.
And
for example, if you get and how much of a DJ you want to be.
Yeah, and how full of yourself, if you love to hear your voice. Yeah,
right?
Maybe you can
guys, it's okay. You don't have to
Coming up next.
I have two comments. One is you could have a slightly improved confidence level knowing what you sound like on that mic and then not having to worry about, gee, do I sound all right? No, you sound like yourself. Of course, the bottom line is the performance. And a tiny war story, I recorded Peggy Lee. I used an 87. She was sitting in a wheelchair. It was a ballad. And I played it back and she said, that doesn't sound like me. I need my microphone. And I found out she needed a 160, a Bayer 160. So she handheld the mic. She sang into it. On playback, I swam it in reverb. She heard it and she said, you see, I was right. I said, yeah, you needed your microphone. That's right. So confidence.
Well, and I think a notion of familiarity too does kind of help. Like if you've recorded your entire career on a 416 and then someone puts a really fat large diaphragm condenser in front of you, even just how you position the copy is going to be an alien experience that you're going to have to acclimate to. And if you're having to do that in the session, then you're of two minds. You're not really focused on your performance. But that's also kind of why I think it's not a bad idea for talent as they're evolving in their career to maybe have a multiple mic solution in their own home studios. Like I think we understand the sound of the 416 really well, but we also sort of we start to direct that more towards we split. In LA, we really focus on that mic as promo trailer. Promo voice, trailer voice, it's got an aggressive sound. It's going to react in a very different way to the proximity effect than a large diaphragm condenser might. But then in the rest of the country, we sort of position the 416 as this way to kind of get away with maybe not soundproofing as well. Well, it's low bar. It's got this really skinny recording pattern. You can get away with less sound treatment, which isn't necessarily true. That's not completely true if you really understand that mic and how that mic reacts and the way low bar actually does kind of poke out the back of that mic a little bit. So I don't think it's a bad idea where, especially because I come out of the commercial world, commercial casting world, to have a mic where it's a slightly more open and airier sound seems to help a more conversational read for some actors. And then there are those actors that cross over really well between a commercial sound, which is conversational, and an aggressive, in-your-face sort of promo sound. And swapping that mic does actually give them the tools to reference more accurately or more appropriately for the task at hand. And you can kind of get away with some of that if you have a multi-pattern mic. If you have a mic that can dial in a really nice hyper or super cardioid pattern and then can open up to a wide cardioid pattern, you can kind of dial in some of that sense too.
Right. Now, to the average voice actor who's working out of their closet, how relevant is all of that? I mean,
I talk about it as like room to grow.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're in a closet and your sound treatment are the clothes in your closet, obviously you're starting at a stage where having 6 or 7 mics and different recording pieces and a $3,000 preamp doesn't make sense. But we would all want to aspire to having those golden handcuffs, right? This is part of that career, part of that business. So I talk about that in where you grow in your career. Maybe you start with an SM57 just because you need to block out noise and you're only working at that audition grade audio. And then after a couple of years of building your reputation and building your business and building your client base, then you really do need to have the solutions in place to knock out a good promo read. You have to have that good conversational coffee shop commercial read. You need to have that aggressive animation, boisterous, super dynamic setup, and that's not necessarily mic. That's like compressor, limiter, preamp, and all of that gear too. But we still want to have that conversation. I want to treat that conversation with the respect of, if you're really taking this seriously and you're telling me that this is what your business is going to be, eventually we have to have that conversation. So we might as well say that that's farther along in your career, but that's something to be aiming for.
Cliff,
Yes.
you were interjecting. Go ahead, please.
Oh, well, actually, Juan made a real good point earlier. He was talking about, if you're going into your closet. And I had a conversation a couple days ago, and we were talking about starting from the very beginning, what are the most important things in your chain? And I came up with something a little interesting, and he said, you're going to have everybody argue with you. But I just want to see if you guys agree. I think the first single most important thing would be your environment.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Hands down.
Second most important thing are your cables.
Okay.
Third most important thing is your mic pre. And the fourth most important thing would be your microphone, because if you have a lousy environment, it doesn't matter what mic you use. If you've got lousy cables that have a lot of impedance or introduce some, doesn't matter what mic you use. If you have a weak sounding or a cheap preamp, doesn't matter what kind of microphone you use. So to me, this really the most important thing is in that order. What do you guys think? Am I nuts?
I don't think you're nuts, but I think there are different ways to approach. The same way we would approach conversations with cameras. Like there are these great shootouts of, do you buy a really expensive lens and put it onto a cheap camera body, or do you buy a really expensive camera body and then just wait a long time until you can pick up nice glass? And right. I think we can chase our own tails with audio in the same way, because I think if we're talking about that initial closet recording experience, chances are pretty good that someone's going to gravitate towards a USB solution. So your cabling and preamp are just taken out of the discussion from step one, and you just know that that's got to be a disposable purchase, that as soon as you grow, you've got to scrap that whole thing, and then from scratch again, then start working towards, do I need an interface? Do I need a preamp to back up that interface? And then what kind of mic and cabling do I put on top of that? So again, it kind of just depends on how someone stumbles their way into voiceover. I mean, in my opinion, how someone stumbles into voiceover, what kind of purchasing solution they end up with. But I think we'd all be agreed that step number one is the space.
Environment.
Because even if you have a weak preamp and bad cabling and a crappy mic, if you've got a baller space, you can actually still make that sound.
You can. That's why that's number one. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's people, if they're in their car with their iPhone, they sound pretty good.
I mean, we've heard that anecdotal story. I booked this job off my iPhone in my car.
More people than we would like to think.
More people we would like.
Yeah, more audio than I would have liked to have received. Also, to be honest.
Oh yeah, I gotten a lot. of that.
If you're gonna buy a mic cable, and why chintz out?
Don't chintz out.
This is George's favorite mic cable that I own. That he's it's starting to get a little frayed. Does it sound okay? As long as it sounds okay, I won't be replacing it anytime soon. No, you need absolutely. Environment is number one, and again, the same thing with your interface. Or if you're more pro, a mic preamp and then an interface, it's a one-time purchase. Even second level, in other words, if USB mic was your first level and you got to get rid of it, at your second level, you need a good interface like a 2x2 or a Steinberg or something.
And we talked about this the last time I was on. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead, John.
No, well, welcome to internet lag conversations.
Totally my bad.
Real quick to what Roy was saying, I think that, why I disagree with, I think was it number 3 that was the most important for you, was the preamp, Cliff?
Preamp, yeah.
I think that's almost lowest on the list in almost 2016, because the only time, I troubleshoot a lot of studios and set up a lot of studios, and the only time where it's noisy, crappy sounding because of the preamp that's being used, it's because they're using like a 1995 Behringer piece of shit mixer, and running that into some line in input,
So then isn't it important, Jordan?
No, it's important. But the point being is like, no, you can't get that. Technology is so good. You can buy a $80 audio interface, and every $80, anything above $80, in my opinion, is acceptable for voiceover. It may not, it's going to have different characteristics and stuff, but they're so good now, especially on the digital to, or the analog to digital conversion. Yep. I don't think that's as important anymore. not trying to argue or anything, Cliff. But,
No, please. That's why we're here. That's why.
But I mean, in a way, I think that
I
sort of
see what you're saying, but I don't
reinforces-
think it's important anymore.
No, in a way, though, I think that kind of reinforces the point, though, because what you're talking about is the preamp that's built into something else. So if it's a crappy mixer preamp, we're still talking about that preamp being a part of that signal chain. And I would, this is still one of the reasons why I think even newbie voice talents, as they're making that transition over into buying separate pieces of gear, making that move out of just a USB mic, I still, and I'll put up the argument that maybe it's still worth it for them to start learning a little bit more about what the numbers on the side of the box. I know the 2i2 is a very popular box, but I've actually been recommending the 2i4 a little bit more because it's got a slightly better signal to noise ratio. It's got a slightly higher preamp output. And for a lot of spoken word recordings, we're not the target audience. You know, spoken word recording is the bastard stepchild of recording. When people talk about the human instrument, they usually mean singers. So every little bit of additional gain that we can get, every way that we can push that signal to noise ratio, even just a little bit, if you can spring for the extra $20 for that upgrade, I think it's worth it to examine what your purchasing solution might be. So even though like we can get some great results at an $80 interface, how you have to drive those preamps for an intimate read is going to be very different than for an animation read or a promo read or a more outgoing commercial read. So if you can give yourself an extra 10 decibels a gain for $40, I'd say, that's an acceptable purchasing, upgrade or a more expensive solution to make.
Right. And clearly you've got lots of interfaces that have really good preamps.
Oh, yeah.
As you were saying. Like I've got my 2i2.
Oh, yeah.
Although I am moving up to a Yamaha now.
Ooh. Yeah. Why Yamaha?
Because George said so.
Oh, okay. That's a good enough reason, folks. Because George said so.
I got one of those.
Going to have interface shootout.
We're going to scratch on his head here.
We need to do an interface shootout now.
There's this new thing from Yamaha. I don't know.
So what we'll do is we'll get all 8 of those mics again, and then do all 8 of those mics on the 2i2, and then all 8 of those mics on the Yamaha, and then I'll bring in one of my old M audios, and we'll just do 36 different tracks of audio for you guys to listen to.
It gets out of hand real fast.
Yeah. Now we did that one through with the Allen and Heath, which is our board.
The shootout?
Yes.
No.
It was through my
2i2, my friend.
It was done through a 2i2. So in case you're wondering, that's
2i2.
A 2i2. It's
We opted for the 2i2 because we wanted something that was very familiar.
Right.
Yeah. Very few voice actors would know the Allen Heath board, so I figured let's use something that is like a baseline.
Right. You ran it all the way over there.
Yeah, we pulled it out and we brought it over here, plugged it in. We just wanted a baseline thing that was
totally
very affordable and would just
and that fits in a recording chain where we're talking about high end, the top end mic being around $500.
Yeah,
that's appropriate. Where we kind of keep that whole signal path at commiserate levels of gear expenses. That makes sense to me. I don't know that I would want to put like a U87 into a closet on a 2i2. That doesn't fit in the environment with the equipment. You really want to get your money's worth out of that $3,000 mic. You really want to give it the environment and the equipment to back it up properly.
Well, even somebody purchasing an 87, they were a little more serious or a little further along in their voiceover.
You would hope.
Well, let me also jump in here. My little list was purely high end. Okay, we were talking, with the high end preamp, with the high end microphone, with the high end. And how would you put those guys in order? Anyway, carry on, gentlemen. Thank you.
No, I mean, people do get microphones as a gift from time to time that might be a little more premature than what they, so that happens. That's rare. But just because you can use something doesn't always mean you should, maybe. But
and I think a part of that is also just the lack of education. When someone says, like, I need to improve my sound, so I need a better mic.
Right.
And we see that a lot.
Building voice booths, and they can't even read.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I tell people it's not the mic. And the other question I asked is, so what mic should I get? And that was kind of the next question I was going to ask, and then we'll go to a break, is, when they say, what mic should I get? Or should I get one of these? I go, does it make you read any better?
Right.
Does it change the way you read it? Is it the mic that's going to get you work, or is it your ability to interpret copy? And it really comes down to that. So anyway, why don't we take a break right now and let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll get back to this. And if you have any topics you'd like to bring up, or continue this conversation on microphones with our Audio Masters Roundtable here on Voice Over Body Shop, throw them in the chat room. Shelly Avellino is sitting in there, and she will relay those to us, and we will bring them up. It'd be very, very good mimicking. Now I got George down here like this.
No, he's a little
George.
Hi,
George. Okay. Anyway,
Pet him and pat him and squeeze him and.
That's right. All righty. Should I go for the VO to go spot here or the
We'll come right back and you do the VO to go.
Okay.
Beautiful.
We'll be right back after this on Voice Over Body Shop.
Learning never ends.
You continue to grow.
Edge Studio has grown. Pursue multiple disciplines in tandem and grow your career. We've added new courses in a new curriculum,
We pick the best coaches from the community of working voice actors.
a new technology division, engineering and consulting led by George Whittam.
Follow your dream.
Sign up for advanced learning or register for an Introduction to Voice Acting or Foundation Studies program
See it all now.
at thenewedgestudio.com.
Hiya, VO friends. You sure you ain't booked a VO gig in 7 years? And your demo is so old that you can hear the clicks from the stock music records? And you hear so much tape hiss that you run to the sink to see if the faucet is running? And the engineer used so much echo on your voice that it sounds like it was recorded in the Grand Canyon? And the scripts seem a bit dated too, advertising the new and improved 1938 Plymouth Road King? Is that what's been troubling you, Bunky?
Well, lift your head up high and take a walk in the sun. Your demo can be killer, too. Just contact Uncle Roy at AtlandProductions.com and book yourself a shiny new killer demo. Show your stick-to-itiveness and show the world you'll never give up, never give up, never give up. That dream.
Voice Over Body Shop, where you can learn everything from mic technique to how to market your voiceover business to acting your way out of a wet paper sack, which is my favorite, by the way.
Okay, we're back here. And by the way, VO2GoGo voiceover curriculum is beginning anew in January, kicking off the new year with mastering home equipment, mastering microphone technique, and auditioning with Audacity. You can be audacious with Audacity. But now is the best time to become a VO2GoGo Pro and save money every month as you refine your voiceover practice. And for a limited time, you can save even more with one of our Cyber specials, giving you hundreds of dollars off or a complete home studio setup as part of your membership. Visit vo2gogo.com/VOBS to get more info and to get started. That's vo2gogo.com/VOBS. And we appreciate David H. Lawrence being on one of our sponsors here. So go on over to vo2gogo.com. All right. So the question was, and I'll throw this out to everybody because I get this question asked every freaking day, every single day. And we see it on Facebook. Drives me insane.
The number one question I got on the blog, and one of the reasons why I actually stopped writing it.
Yeah, it's like, what's the best microphone? I did a whole webinar on this, and I had myself a picture of Moses holding up a microphone. What's the best microphone for voiceover? Let's start with Jordan. Let's see what you think.
I wonder what Mike Jordan will say is the best one for voiceover.
No wonder his is so loud.
Yep, louder is better, right?
Hula.
Oh my God! All right.
You
Well,
don't have
my
to have
smart
an
ass
opinion.
answer
Just
is this.
Tell us the truth about this stuff.
RAVO, but it's not in everyone's budget. At the end of it's just so subjective. It comes down to budget, and then here's how I answer. I'll make it short. I have a list of microphones within certain budget ranges that I just shoot to people who email me this very redundant question, and then with a little disclaimer at the end of the day, it depends on your environment, your audio, your mic cable, your preamp, and your voice and how you use the mic. And if you can test out 2 to 3 mics back to back, and then send back the other ones. So you have an arrangement with the retailer. That's the best possible scenario. But that's usually not possible. So I don't know. That's always my answer. I don't have anything magical.
Cliff.
Oh my. No real one microphone. I think one thing to consider is the environment that you're in. You want one that's open. You want one that has a narrow field. Do you want one that's unforgiving? Basically, it's your budget. And just like Jordan said, get in with a guy at a store. Give him your credit card. Let him have him give you a couple mics to take home. Try them out. There is no one microphone, although there were a couple of really good ones that we got on the list. And since I spent so much time making notes,
we should go through our list.
I'm just going to say a couple of them quick here. Okay, the baby blue microphone I thought sounded really good, and I thought it sounded great on Dan. And Dan, you should buy one.
Me too.
I thought the proximity effect was very pronounced. The CAD sounded a little dull to me. I really liked the MK4. Loved the close-up. Thought it was great, nice and warm, wonderful for voiceover. The C214 had a nice output, nice and loud. I thought it sounded great. Little mid-rangey. And then so on. I was not a big fan of the Neat. I thought it was clicky. I thought there was too much proximity effect. And I heard a lot of mouth noise from Dan that I did not hear on the other reads. Love it. The Lewitt I thought was a little bit low and high end. I thought the 220, the SE220 was muddy, sounded very low tech. Didn't like it at all. AT4040, very familiar, and everybody's got one. I've heard, maybe 20% of the stuff that I get is done on that microphone, so it's comfy. The Harlon Hogan mic I thought sounded pretty good. Sounded better close up. The 103. That was beautiful, just smooth and lovely. And I just bought an SSLE plug-in strip for my Pro Tools, and I would love to run that through that. And I thought the 416, compared to the other ones, sounded carved. It wasn't really very forgiving, and again, but very familiar. But I'll tell you what, I was really surprised. The mic that I really liked the most, I really liked that baby blue. What do y'all think?
It's amazing.
My list is very similar on a few of these things. The blue bottle, I thought, was the best of the lot.
Yeah, really nice.
I was disappointed with the CAD because I've heard it before, and so maybe the CAD isn't your Dan's mic.
Little dull sounding to you, Roy?
Yeah. It was flatter and kind of true, but it was like a so what, but it had good bottom. The MK4 I thought was better in the proximity range.
Yeah, really nice up close.
The C214 that you said was thin. What I put was it had.
No. I said it was mid-rangey.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
it's okay.
My words here, which is exactly what you said, is tiny presence boost.
Yes,
I heard. So that's your version of mid-rangey.
Yeah.
And the proximity was nice. The Neat I thought was nothing special. It was better at proximity. The Lewitt, I wrote, the proximity was better. The 220 is what I thought the CAD would be. The 220 I liked.
The 220.
The 440 had good bottom, but was lacking a little presence, in my opinion.
Yep, a week above 3K.
Yeah, exactly. The VO1A, you said was pretty good and better at proximity, and is exactly what I wrote. The 103, the 103 is very true, and we love it, but it still needs a little mid-range boost. It needs a little EQ. It's a great mic. There's nothing. Yeah. And no offense, I thought Dan was getting tired by the time he read it. The 103, and then the 416, and the 416 was of course nice, both close and far and close. So
let's all go by the baby blue.
Carlos.
So I don't have notes in front of me like these other gentlemen do, but this is also one of the things I keep pointing to whenever we throw a 416 into the mix. You have to understand low bar, and you have to understand what a shotgun does, because I think they're kind of tone deaf. I think they're punchy, loud mics that you can get away with a little extra futz or noise in your environment, but they're not very musical. That diaphragm is going to be a noticeably smaller affair than what you get on a large diaphragm condenser. A lot of the notes that we've talked about already, I definitely agree with. And for me, the TLM 103 has always inconsistently been a mic that veers on brittle if you don't have it backed up properly. Like that's why I think we love throwing tube preamps on the 103. It's why we like kind of futzing with the mid-range EQ on that mic, because that thing on my solid state pre, I've got just a really ugly gray box, make it loud solid state preamp. That thing comes across as brittle and harsh and metallic if you don't have the 103 backed up with the right equipment leading up to it. The 214, I think the 214 is probably pulling its capsule from the
414.
Well, but the 414 XL2.
Yeah.
Not the XLS. And that's where I think, because I agree, I think the 214 does have that kind of elevated mid-range.
I think neither of those 414s. I have an old EB that I love because it's warmer.
That's what I learned how to record on was the EB, but I'll still take a ULS. If you can find a 414 ULS, those things are gorgeous. They might need to be cleaned up and serviced, but those mics are still like, especially for nuance, like you want to capture a grand piano, that is the mic you go to.
When the capsule went on my 414, just the capsule, $400, which people would pay for a whole microphone.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, like I still like hunt around eBay looking for EBs and stuff, and when you get parts on those, they're astronomical.
Great on a woman's voice too. Actually, I found out there's actually a question from the chat room and from email saying, "You guys are always talking about men's mics for men. What about women?"
That was actually a question.
102.
Yeah.
Why don't we throw that one out there? Go ahead.
I just want to quickly backtrack because I had one answer for the question that we had before. What's the best mic for voiceover? Because there is, like everyone else has been saying, there is no good answer to that. But the one piece of advice I would give out is the mics to avoid. Because I think we have a lot of advice out there where people recommend, like you go into like a Guitar Center, and if the person you're talking to has no experience with spoken word recording, they're apt to recommend a vocals mic. And most of the time that's going to be bad news for voice talent. Because what happens with the vocals mic is you're having to cut through, you want the human voice to cut through usually rumbly music. And so it's got a lot of juicy presence peaks. You usually have a lot of high-end crystal, sparkly at the top end of the EQ. And that's not really what we want for the human voice while speaking. I think that's also one of the things like in this mic shootout, the one thing that worries me, because I'm a big fan of Blue. I like Blue. I hate their pop screens. I think their pop screens are crap. But the one thing that always worries me about a Blue is that it's a little like the Pepsi Challenge, right? Where when the Pepsi Challenge was in full swing back when I was a little kid, people would say, "Oh, Pepsi's delicious" off of that one little sip because it was way syruppier, it was way sweeter, but you wouldn't want to finish it. Like if you had to drink a whole bottle, Coke was better, right?
Well, similarly,
so that,
you wouldn't want to listen to a
because they're so colorful.
long format recording. Like an audiobook recorded on a 416, you would get ear fatigue. You wouldn't want to listen for long periods
I worry.
of time.
I mean, like this is a very minor worry. This isn't me like don't buy Blue, but I do worry that sometimes we rank Blue higher in some of these shootouts because Blue really does focus on delivering a colorful mic, not necessarily always a reference grade mic.
It was
Each
a nice
one of their
color.
mics has a particular characteristic to it.
It was paisley.
Well, I have very quick feedback on the mics if you want. And what Juan said is brilliant. Like I completely agree. Well, everything you said about Blue, I completely agree. And one thing before I give quick feedback on the mics, when people also ask about the right microphone, it just came to mind. And the women are complaining about not getting enough feedback and like using women as an example when it comes to voice. I think all of us know enough mics to where they have a certain characteristic. For example, I usually don't like the VO or the Rode NT1A on most female voices because females tend to, their sibilance is usually a bit more, present because they don't have low end to balance it out and cover it up. And then there's mics that have a lot of low end, like for like the 416 picks up a lot of low end. The Caddy 100S picks up a lot of low end. So on a female, you can kind of get away with that. But if it's like Bob Sauer and you put him in a typical booth, it's going to sound really boomy without a pretty aggressive high pass filter. So so there's little things like that you can cue into and ask one of any of us offline about regarding mics. So all that aside, I have very quick feedback on the mics if you guys want. Completely conflicts with everything you guys said.
You young kids.
Roundtable.
So I prefer a more balanced, flatter sound for VO because because if you want it to cut more, then you can. It's already high quality, so you can EQ it and compress it to taste versus having to tame stuff. It's much easier to add to something than to have to
You can't
pull out
unbake that pie.
aggression. What's that?
You can't unbake that pie. Once you've added the color, once you've added the compression, you can't.
So because of that, for example, I thought the TLM 103 had a ton of noise. I don't know if you had a fan that came on during that clip, but it was really hot and noisy, like I heard an electronic noise. That's at least in that example. It's usually a very quiet mic.
You got a sharp ear there, Jordan, because the fact is that mic's about 10 years old, and it's actually heading back to our friends at Neumann and Sennheiser to have them clean it up and fix it. So
that diaphragm to get the cleanup.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Cool. Then what I that wasn't normal for a 103, but my favorite mic of all of those was the SE 2200. It had just enough low end. It had a nice smooth mid range and really soft upper end, and it wasn't flat and muffled either. It was just like a nice smooth balanced spectrum. The CAD E100S was a close second, but it has a little too much low end for me. And for my taste, and it can make most booths sound way too boomy on most voices. But luckily, it has a high pass filter on it, which is pretty aggressive. I think it's either 80 or 100 hertz on there.
Yeah.
And that tends to help because I own one myself, and I've used it on some gigs. 416 was probably my third. It had more of a flatter sound, surprisingly, compared to, like the blue. The blue, I think I hated the most. But I like colored mics if they're colored in a certain way, but I didn't like the blue.
That's also blue is so tricky because the difference between a kiwi, a blue bottle, a bluebird, a blueberry, I should say, all of them are just so different. You can get kind of a beat on an AKG. The difference between an XL2 and an XLS isn't profound. But blues are all over the place, and you just kind of have to know. Like it's going to be a mystery until you plug one in.
Yeah,
and we're judging these mics based on absolutely no music, no production. It's some mics might cut through better naturally without any added EQ because the presence boost is built in. But just not taking anything like that into account, just based on the naked voice.
But I was fully dressed for that.
That's my feedback. I could go through every single one, but that was kind of, I figured I'd feature, list off my favorite stuff of the mics.
Well, but now I'm totally confused because here we had all these fabulous mics.
Yes.
In my fabulous booth here, that is, George and I have been like tinkering with for the last 3 months, making this thing sound the way we want. My voice is my voice. It's not going to change at all. I mean.
It's not about the mic, Dan.
It's not the mic. That's the whole point. So
whichever mics you don't like, just give them away to us. We're happy.
Well, I'm actually leaving with the box, guys. I'm sorry.
I have a dolly over there. It'll help you get it out of here. Well, the thing is that one of the things I like to tell people when they talk about mics is they say, well, this guy said this one is great, and this one guy. Okay, granted. We're not geeks. We are engineers. There are people out there that are complete geeks.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I can tell the difference between a U87 and one of these and one of the, which I think is absolute nonsense. Unless you know which mic it is.
Yeah.
And the thing I like to tell people is look, these are things that audio geeks think about, but for the most part, present company accepted. Geeks don't hire voice talent.
Nope. I mean, we get geeky about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we love this stuff. And we like actually debating. I mean, that's what's so great about how you guys did the shootout is we do kind of like debating the nuance and the merits of these individual mics and where our personal tastes might veer off on some of this hardware. But on the whole, it's really about, are you delivering a clean signal free of distraction that sounds like you so that I'm not surprised by what you sound like in real life when you show up in my studio. And if you've satisfied all that, then I think we're cool. We can be pals.
All right.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break right now, and then we're going to get to all your questions, maybe changing the subject a little bit here on VoiceOver Body Shop. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with our great guests and our roundtable. Are you confused about how to set up and maintain a professional quality voiceover studio? No wonder. The information out there is mostly mythology. This is the best microphone to use. You'll have to have a preamp. You need a soundproof booth. This software is the best. Your audio must be broadcast quality. Consult with someone who knows the truth. Someone who's been there, in the trenches, doing voiceover for over 30 years. Someone with unparalleled experience with voiceover studios, who's worked with hundreds of voice actors and designed hundreds of personal studios. He knows how to teach and cares about your success. In one of the harshest environments known to voiceover, your home. Dan Leonard, the Home Studio Master. Separate myth from fact and get a handle on your personal voiceover studio. Contact the Home Studio Master at homevoiceoverstudio.com. Drop off a specimen of your dry audio for a free analysis. VoiceOver Extra, the voiceover industry's online news, education, and resource center 24/7. Hundreds, probably thousands of free how-to articles for voiceover success, ranging from home studio to voice acting to business. A free voiceover industry directory, calendar of industry events, resource links, a store, and much more. Bi-monthly webinars on all topics of voiceover, free subscriptions to newsletters, reports, announcements, daily news, and features at voiceoverextra.com.
Learn the latest in voiceover technology.
Business.
And good old-fashioned acting. Hey, Paul, I really like your suit. Where did you get it? It looks good on you. This is VOBS.
And we're back here on VoiceOver Body Shop. Thank you very much. One of our great sponsors, a guy who's been silly enough to hang out with us for like almost 4.5 years. Harlon Hogan over at voiceoveressentials.com. Now, he's got some great stuff over there, but one of the things he has is this fantastic light, which George had to leave because we're having a beer night. He actually had to make a run to the main house here. But anyway, I can actually grab this. Carlos, you just hang out here for a second. Well, I can... hopefully grab.
Everybody's got to go.
That's right. That's the problem with doing beer night.
It's live TV, folks.
It's live. I can't even reach it. But anyway,
the excitement.
The whole point is
I'm gonna
can't
go
reach
now.
it.
I'm okay.
The whole point is that one of the things that Harlon has is this great voiceover recording light that you can hang out in front of your door.
Yeah, it's good,
and it tells people what's going on. And he's got a special going on it right now. Wait, George is back. And now he can show a picture of this thing. Just cross it in front of the camera. We don't care.
I can't even walk that way.
This is what happens on beer night.
We've got a great obstacle course behind the camera
That's
too.
right.
It's awesome.
All right.
And we can see right through your neck. It's really cool, Dan. We love that.
I know. I'm the invisible man. Is that the Los Feliz district down there? And anyway. No, it's Koreatown, actually. Yeah, okay. But anyway, show us the picture of that, George, of the voiceover recording sign, if you can find it there.
I will.
Okay.
It is right.
Which will make this a whole lot easier, and then we can sing the song that Harlan demanded that we sing tonight.
What is it?
He's outside the door with a shotgun right now.
I know.
True story.
So we can all sing along.
Taking his cancer drug that'll make him live longer. It's if you've been watching the football games, and hey, there's Harlan on this commercial. It's really cool. But anyway,
that got dark.
Have we found it yet, George?
I thought I saw him on a spot recently.
There it is. Okay, there's the voiceover recording sign.
Harlan looks plenty healthy there.
I know he does. His beard's growing
rosy cheeked and everything.
Yes. But he told us we have to sing this song.
Okay.
And this is a sign that lets people know that you're recording in your booth. All right. So It glows when you're recording, ready for your next take. It tells all those around you to be quiet for goodness sake. So for the next 3 days only,
with
we
free
just sold
Super
a whole
Saver
pile
shipping
of these
available.
things. You can save $10 on the voiceover recording sign, and it's a great thing to have. It's got you can put a little remote control switch on it, and you can turn it on and off from wherever you're sitting.
Old studio days, man.
Yeah.
You gotta have the big red flashing light to shut up.
I know.
Well, it's definitely nice if you got family in the house. No doubt about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I trained my daughter to pay attention to the on the
she's
air
very
sign.
good about it.
And if
Pretty
I
good.
leave it off, she comes in and says, "Dad."
Well, and I've closed up my office well enough that my wife has a hard time hearing outside the door if I'm in the middle of recording something.
Right.
So she for her it's just kind of a guess whether or not like I'm actively if like I'm editing something and she can come in, or if I just haven't opened up the office.
Or did you
yet.
forget to turn it off?
Right. So actually I could probably use the sign.
That's right. Well, we can get you one.
I think I'm gonna have to get one.
You go over to voiceoveressentials.com, and you can actually go to our website, and you go scroll down the page. There's a picture of Harlan talking into a porta booth. It'll take you right there, and you can buy one of these fabulous signs, or perhaps give it to one of your. He's
actually doing
He's
this.
actually going to scroll down. There he is, right there.
Oh, hey.
There he is.
There's Harlan right
Looks a
there.
little
with his
thinner in
porta
that
booth.
picture.
Click on that, and that will take you to voiceoveressentials.com, where you can purchase one of these fine signs. Perhaps give it as a gift to one of your fellow voiceover colleagues.
Wow.
They will really appreciate it. Anyway, thanks, Harlan, for being a sponsor here on VoiceOver Body Shop for these many years. We appreciate all the help.
Thank you, buddy.
All righty. Well, we're back, and we want to get to some other people's questions, but there was one question. This is going to be a long one.
It's all right.
This
Hey,
is
you know
going to
what?
run for a
We
while.
can run as long as we want.
That's
It's
right.
our internet.
It's, people can use this on the podcast when they're driving between major cities. Driving from Buffalo to Albany or
San
something
Diego
like that.
to Los Angeles.
That's right. Or from Des Moines to Sioux Falls.
Or at this rate, LA to Vegas.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. But anyway, the question that a lot of people have been asking in the chat room, women versus men when it comes to mics. Are there mics that favor women, or are there mics that favor men? And does it really make a difference? Let's start with Uncle Roy.
Hey.
I totally caught him off guard there.
Actually, I've got a very short answer if you want me to jump in, Uncle Roy.
I like the 102, but I also like the 102 on men. But the 102 on women, there's a little more bottom. I think that's the consensus is they need a little more lower mid range or upper bottom just to make the sound fuller. I think the one thing we don't like about, or that I don't like about the NT1A is it lacks that bottom, and to me sounds very thin. It's just lacking that body. So I don't know, 102, everybody seems to sound fine on my 414. And again, everybody's voice is different. Everybody's environment is different. Your proximity to the mic can be different. There's my answer.
Juan Carlos.
So for me, it's really simple. First of all, I don't think there's a good conversation in trying to say men versus women, because we would obviously, Dan and I would never be pitched on the same projects. Like, I don't have that kind of voice. And he doesn't have that sort of tech geeky voice where he'd be talking about Bluetooth in a Camry or something like that.
Gosh, I hope not.
We would have very different careers. We would need very different recording solutions. And so I always would recommend someone trying to go with something that's badged as a bit more of a reference grade mic first to get a baseline, to see where it is that you fall, a mic that people understand. And I'm really glad that Uncle Roy brought up the 414. I like pointing to the 414 first, because it's so well understood. If you can, even the XLS, and I don't like the XLS as much as the ULS, but it starts out in a very even and flat way to get a handle on what frequencies of sound are going to best represent your voice. I need something kind of mid-rangey, because that's where my voice sticks out. If I don't have a little of the tremor and vibrato that my voice naturally carries, I'm not going to be able to out-bass someone. That's not what I need to capture. That's not what's going to be interesting about my quality of voice. And I think women kind of fall in this trap where we try and speak very generally about things like low end, high end, mid range, things like that. But there are going to be characteristics of your voice that make your voice interesting. And over the life of your voiceover career, you'll start to gravitate towards recording solutions that showcase that. Is that going to make the difference between you selling soap for Walmart and not selling soap for Walmart? Absolutely not. But for your branding, for your brand as a product that you're selling your voice, you want to put up your version of the best possible version of your voice. And that's what I would start looking towards. What makes your voice interesting? That's the mic that you need to buy, is the mic that can showcase that well.
Cliff, you got any thoughts on that?
Juan Carlos nailed it.
Well, that
Although
saves
I
us
will,
time.
I'll go
Good,
throw out a
everybody.
brand. I'll throw out a brand since, maybe y'all want a brand, but 3 of my leading female voices all use U87s.
Yeah.
That's it.
Can't go wrong.
No, they sound great, warm, full.
And again, we understand the sound of the U87. We know how to teach people how to use that mic. That's a very well understood. It's a very familiar property. We've been dealing with that mic for a really long time. So I think it's easy to approach that in a form of instruction. I think if we started throwing ribbons at people, that would be a little harder to teach appropriate mic technique for spoken word recording on something like that.
Now, the only reason I know that they're U87s is because they told me they were U87s. I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, that's a U87. But it just so happens that my 3 mains all use them.
All right.
That's interesting. I don't know any women personally who are on that mic right now. Who are on that microphone?
Oh, okay.
Can't afford it.
We'll go offline. I'll give you the names.
Can't afford it. Thanks, Uncle.
All righty. You guys have been waiting patiently to get some of your questions answered here in our voice over Audio Masters Roundtable. So why don't we get to them? Joining us all the way from England, from jolly old England in the UK, Howard Ellison asks, "Hi, Dan and George and guests. This is both an acting and an engineering question, isn't it?" Maybe I should give the accent on. "It's about sound perspective and working to get it right when we have to fly blind on a remote recording with no immediate feedback from the director. Specifically, if a character of in a game or animation is shown only in long shot, should we step well back from the mic to put some air around the voice, or would that get dealt with in post?"
So if we're talking audition, then you just need to know your setup and how tolerant your setup is for the dynamics of an animation performance. In a session, you listen to your engineer and you listen to your director. There's no right answer for how you're going to play the mic. The only right answer is what they want from you when you're in front of the mic. If they want you to back off, great. But most of the time, they're going to ride the levels for you so they can keep you in front of... it would be like an on-camera actor asking, should I dance around in front of the camera lens because I know this is supposed to be like a head and shoulders shot, and then the DP's trying to adjust for you? That would never happen.
Anybody else? Okay.
Nailed it! Ha-ha! I win.
All right. Devox has an interesting question here. And this is one of those questions that makes me think, rock musicians. What's the best mod you've heard? Mod tips. Who cares when it comes to mics?
I can shut up on this one.
George, you want to chime in on that one?
No, I don't. I will say I did hear a modded. I believe it was I heard a modded NT. I'm behind.
Now you're behind.
That's freaking hilarious.
What are you doing back there?
Hi. I did have somebody recently send me a clip of an NT1A that was a Octa. Who's Jolie mod? The guy that does Jolie, yeah. And it did actually
Jolly mod.
Jolly. That whoever the fellow is, that did actually sound quite good. It was an NT1, I think, that was tuned to sound somewhat like a U87, and it sounded good. Did I hear it next to a U87 and go, "Whoa, it's a match"? No, but in that context, it was good. I don't know. It's a tweaky hobby, neat, nerdy, geeky thing to want to do. It's the same people that would buy a modded mic or have one modded probably would build their own PC. It's a fun hobby, that's geeky thing to do, but there's nothing wrong with it, but I wouldn't be my first choice for my key mic. I would be concerned about warranty and just
Why
consistency.
not buy a mic that you like the sound of instead of buying something and having it modded to sound like something else.
Yeah, buying specifically to mod might be silly.
See, no,
I could chime in on the mod thing.
Go ahead.
Jordan.
So the Matt McGlynn, the owner of Roswell Pro Audio, who makes this mic, he also is the owner of Recording Hacks, but additionally microphone-parts.com. And that, I mean, holy cow, you can, if you are a geek and you want to solder and end up breaking things, you can buy parts off that site and build a very good sounding microphone. I mean, for a fourth of the cost, but it's not straightforward. I mean, if you have a fairly good soldering experience, you can get a pretty cool, unique sound.
It's a hobbyist thing.
And what's that?
It's a hobbyist thing.
It's really a hobbyist thing, yeah. But I don't see, in my opinion, I don't see a huge risk in buying something that's modded. I do see the warranty thing, but again, what I said earlier is microphones are fairly simple devices. They're very simple to a degree, especially if it's just a single pattern mic. So I think buying it from a reputable source like Microphone Parts or even the Michael Jolly mod guy, all of the mods I've heard he's done are very good. So, but I never recommend it to anyone.
Hi, Mara. By the way,
Hi, Mara. Hey, Mara. You want to ask your own question here?
Hi, Mara. You have a question for us, right?
You have a question?
What? I've been writing questions.
I'm trying to.
I have the answer. I read the question.
What, Mara? What is your question?
She wants to know where.
I can read it for her if she wants.
She wants
Which
to
one
know
did you want her to ask?
Where could you go? She said, where can you go to test microphones? You can go to B&A.
My basement.
Your basement is one. Well, she's been there, I think. Isn't that where you are now?
Your environment.
No, in my environment.
If you said environment is number one, right?
You can go to my environment.
If you go to a place and you can buy two with the understanding that you're going to return one, and bring them home and try them. I mean, try them there. B&H has a terrible testing room.
Terrible.
Because
Awful.
they're parallel glass and mirror, and
it's the worst.
I had fun at the AES show actually trying on headphones and trying.
When you come to LA, go to the Don LaFontaine voiceover lab where we have about 35 mics available. And that's someplace you can go to controlled environment. You just have to let them know you're coming in advance. They need time to schedule it in because it's a really busy little place. But the Don LaFontaine voiceover lab is a great place to do it in LA at least.
Mm-hmm. All right.
What always gets me though is because if environment in your own home studio is what is priority, then is it kind of irrelevant? I mean, I guess
Somewhat.
you can get a good idea testing somewhere else.
Somewhat irrelevant.
You're right. It is.
Yeah. It's clearly irrelevant in terms of making a very, very informed decision. Mm-hmm. But it's also, so you've all you're very social and you're very out there. Be in the conversation with the manufacturers. You can get microphones sent to you. If you contact manufacturer reps and say, hey, I'm a voice actor and I do all this stuff, but I'm really trying to decide if I want one of your mics, they'll probably send you one to loan. I know the guy from Neumann sends out a lot of Neumann mics to loan to use in a studio for months at a time to know
and you
for
can
sure.
endorse it, So
well, yeah, you can become an endorser too. But yeah, that's really the best way is get the mics in your space.
Yeah, when you go to another place, it's really just the academic notion of how these mics differ in that space. And you can still glean some things that you like and some things that you don't. And also, I think that's important just for how you might want to treat your own studio, is to go to other studios and see like, man, I really liked what they did here. Or there are some tips and tricks for me to treat my own space when it's time to build something out better than just my closet. But
I was
just
going to
understand
say if you're in an outdoor outside studio and they have a lot of mics and you can try them out. Okay, that's in a studio that we would assume it has been treated and it's going to sound similar to, if you've done it right, to your space.
I think the bass frequency stuff is the hardest to get right.
That's really the trick.
Because every room the bass is really the telltale frequency band that's done differently in every single room. And so, you may have to rule out the low end a little bit.
Could be a music studio, and it's not really set up for
they're
voiceover.
all really different.
But also, don't underestimate your ability to reach out to other people in this community, in your around you, and then also further away from you to also loan out mics.
Do mic swaps with your buddies. Do mic swaps.
There's every opportunity to kind of play with that stuff. I mean, I know for headphones, we used to do that a lot. We would have listening parties in college, and just play with different monitors.
You were really bored, weren't you?
I was at the college radio station. We would say, what is it that we want to buy and what do we want to invest in? We would just reach out to other people that already had gear. And so they would bring stuff by the studio and we'd shoot stuff out there.
Yeah.
So I would not underestimate. You just know it's got to be a process, though, and that's a part of your educational process in being a small business owner is doing the fact finding on your own. I mean, there's all the academic stuff that you can kind of point to from people like us talking about this stuff, but until you get your ears in your gear in your space, then you're not really going to really know. And sometimes it's going to be time, and sometimes it's going to be money. But it's going to be a process.
Yeah, and I was thinking it takes time and experience to learn what that is.
Yeah,
years, not overnight, not weeks, not a course or something.
A semester,
like not a semester, not one textbook. It takes years. I mean,
including
combined, we have probably
technique
over 100 years experience in here, or more if you include Roy.
You better double that.
Proud of it.
Too easy. Sorry.
I just hired an engineer on Fiverr, and he taught me everything I know.
All right.
That's some good money right there.
Fire, huh?
All right, we got time for a couple more questions here. Steve Gonzalez asks, we sort of covered this, but let's go over it again. Separate preamp or not when it comes to something like a 103 or higher. I've got a preamp. I've used my 212 most of the time, or my 2i2, and the results seem to be okay. But you guys are all saying that if you've got something that's really high end, over $500, you should probably have a separate preamp other than your digital converter.
My feeling is yes. If you're really trying to drive the investment of $1,000 plus mic, then I kind of feel you want to throw the electronics behind it that makes sense for that tier of equipment. And there are things like, your signal to noise ratios change when you start using your interface just as a digital to analog converter, as opposed to preamp and digital to analog converter. I think there are tones and colors that you can draw out of certain pieces of equipment where that makes sense. Again, we're still going to have to start playing with nuance where maybe the color is something that's appropriate, or maybe it's just a tone or a characteristic or a nuance. It's not going to be this it radically changed my sound. But I look at mics, we want to say the 103 specifically. I kind of feel the 103 likes to be backed up by something a little warm, so like tubes, or futzing with the EQ and the mids. I don't necessarily have that same feeling with something like the 414. The 414, I actually kind of like leaving it alone and playing it a little more stark and flat and even. So those are all just the personal preferences that should develop over time as you start adding more pieces of equipment to your chain.
I think it also depends on your level. Where are you in your career?
Yeah.
Don't we're not telling the person who's been in the voiceover industry for 2 years to go running out and buy a mic preamp with processing. You guys kind of steer away from live processing unless you really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or somebody like Dan or George or myself has set you up to do mild compression or EQ. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Well, and learning the difference between compression as an effect and a compression as a safety net. I mean, we could do tons of shows on stuff like that.
I think we should do a shootout with those mics and then lay a piece of music and see who what cuts and what needs processing.
Now we're talking masterclass level stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
And that requires
put some death metal on, see which one
too,
cuts the most.
Oh yeah.
All right. Do we have time for one more question here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people
right.
tuned in to ask questions. Let's get to those questions.
Okay. Steve Gonzalez asks again, do engineers cover their mics? For example, I've heard some zip them in plastic bags with silica gel. Opinions? None.
Well, actually, you've got this amazing collection of mics here, so I would actually like to hear from...
I answered the...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. No, I kind of already answered. Since no one else is answering, I'll answer it. I also answered in the chat room. If your mic, my opinion, is going to be out in the open. For example, if you leave your booth door open and you're done for the day, I'm a fan of putting a Ziploc bag with silica gel taped inside, especially in more humid climates like in Louisiana, which is where Mary used to live.
Not a problem here.
Mara just abuses all her mics and keeps them all out in the open. She's a horrible person.
My dilemma is that like I've had this dilemma forever because I've heard that it's smarter to take the mic, put the mic in its case every day, and where I lived it would make sense, because it would be protected from the elements. But I didn't like the fact, especially with like my 103, my shotgun not so much, but with the 103.
Yeah, the humidity is a big
shake it around every day. I figured there was more risk with messing with it than just leaving it alone.
Well, I agree with the don't take it off the stand every single day and put it away, because the more you handle the mic, the more you put it on and off the shock mount in the stand, the way more of a chance you have to drop that thing.
Yeah.
So I think leaving it on the stand probably makes the most sense if it's your own studio in your own home.
But I don't know. I mean, correct me if you guys think otherwise, but I think for spoken word recording, there's more of a danger of accumulation of humidity from human speech than environmental humidity.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the 70s, wasn't that
use.
Neumann's big problem with like smokers? Was like all of the tar vapor coming out of people's mouths was accumulating on mic diaphragms?
Yep.
So I don't know that I think it's nice, and especially if you live in a climate where it's really dusty, maybe you can throw a cover over it. But for my mics, I like to go to microfiber. I don't like the idea of like Ziploc and plasticky, especially because we live in a drier climate where things can get kind of staticky in really strange ways.
Yeah, I know it's kind of, and some people are saying like the Crown Royale bags and golf club covers,
nice.
Well,
which I think are too.
I
don't like fabricy too much because they
much
collect
lint
things, and
fabric.
you're gonna slide it over the grill right here, and then it's gonna pull all that stuff in, and eventually get into your capsule. So that's why I'm a bigger fan of plastic, which is less risky, I guess, with the dust factor.
All righty.
Yeah. Well, plastic can hold the humidity more. I think the only thing I keep my mics out pretty open, but this is a pretty closed environment that I'm in.
Yeah.
I think the only time it's really important to think about that stuff is if you have a tube microphone, and do you cover a tube microphone while it's on? Well, that might not be a good idea.
You get big cookies in there.
The studio that I worked in LA had half a dozen C12s. And if y'all know what a C12 is, every session that microphone went back into the box, very carefully closed and put away. But just don't cover anything that's got a tube.
Well, yeah, I never cover anything while it's on. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, as is our tradition here on VoiceOver Body Shop, we get to go around the horn one time with everybody with their final thoughts, perhaps on the entire discussion or perhaps some political thing that they want to toss out there. But why don't we...
Something sage.
Beer night. That's what happened. Stay thirsty, my friends. All right. Why don't we start with Jordan? Go ahead.
I knew you were going to start with me. I
know.
was criticizing your beer choice on mute.
What's wrong with the Dos Equis?
Don't. Here,
We're not
ready? I have my
claiming-
word of wisdom for the night.
All right.
Don't drink domestic beer. Only drink microbrews from Colorado. No. When
Paid
it comes
for by the governor
when
of
it comes to
Colorado.
audio stuff, I feel like I'm redundant, but just like what Cliff brought up earlier, which is a great point, it all comes down into your environment first. And there's two factors. There's the acoustics and there's noise getting in. So, the more time that you can educate yourself or hire someone like any of us on this panel to help you get a great quiet environment and non-reflective environment, that's going to be of most value first to put all your efforts there. Then worry about things like, should I get an Avalon? Or should I get 3 more mics, which is my habit. That's how I drown away all my sorrows is I just buy more mics. So, yeah, it's acoustics, sound, that comes first. So that'll be my go-to words of wisdom.
Okay.
Beer.
Uncle Roy.
First of all, I want to say that it's great to see Mara's smiling face.
It always is. We don't get to see it enough.
I love you, Mara. And it's very important. My beer of choice we call girly beers, which are the Mike's Hard Lemonade. Anybody who's been to the VOBBQ knows VOBBQ. Or Smirnoff's, any of those fruity beers. And lastly, my last bit of advice is egg and onion with cream cheese is really good choice. Really good.
Don't go for the unsalted.
Oh, and Cliff and I are going to have a matzo fry off.
Oh, everybody will win.
Well, you're right.
We're doing this on Passover this year.
The electric skillet to the studio, and I would be mixing with one hand and turning the with the other.
Full stick of butter, 2 eggs, 1 egg for every 2. I'm not going to give you my recipe.
No, that's it. You're right. It's 1 egg for every 2 sheets, and then you throw in 1 extra sheet for the
Niafat. You have to use Niafat. That was my father-in-law's secret to that. Anyway,
they used to put schmaltz in. They used to put chicken fat. No, my great grandmother would make it with chicken fat.
And they lived
post Hanukkah discussion.
Very unhealthy.
Cliff,
yes. Closing statement. Don't make any quick choices. There's a lot of great advice out there. There's a lot of great resources out there. Do your homework. Take a lot of time in your choices of whatever you do, be it your environment, your cables, your mic pre, your DAW. Ask those that are doing it every day. And when you get 3 or 4 people or 5 people that all kind of agree on the same thing, that might be someplace to look. But
good luck with that.
The people that are in this room and the people that are watching this pretty much know that. And but take your time. Don't jump into any purchase.
All right. Juan Carlos Bagnell, some audio guy. You get the back cleanup.
I think Cliff absolutely nailed it. As you might have been able to glean just from our reactions to the Mike shootout, a lot of this stuff is going to be subjective, and I think we rush into trying to make purchasing decisions on brands and products that we don't fully understand. Namely, what is it that you bring to the world of voiceover that allows you to be a product and a commodity that can be bought and sold? And so if to back up what Cliff was saying, the absolute number one piece of advice I would extend is to take time, not only just for the academic or educational process, but just to understand what it is that you do bring to the table. Once you understand that, you can market it. Once you understand that, you can package it. Once you understand that, you can capture that performance better. But that takes time. And it's not something that you can rush into. I mean, for all of our technical speak and for all of our geekery here, the artistic side is really what it is that we're trying to capture. So if we don't understand that artistic product, then we can't capture it. And even on our end, I'm sure we've all run into situations where we've been in sessions like, I'm not really entirely sure what this guy's trying to do. So I'm not entirely sure what tools I might want to use to capture it. So for the person at home that's looking at making this investment, that's absolutely the piece of advice I would position up forward. And if you guys will allow me the plug, in all of this discussion about audio stuff, I just published a book on photography that, to get also my geeky thoughts on how to improve smartphone photography, smartphone video capture, things like that. That book is now up on Amazon. It's called Take Better Photos, Smartphone Photography for Noobs. And with the same level of discourse that we've been jumping into with audio recording stuff, I think for the number of people out there who are really into their own creative endeavors, now's the right time to be positioning your own content, creating your own content, sharing your own content. And the tools that we have on mobile devices are getting really good to aid in that endeavor. And if you're interested, I hope you guys check it out.
I will.
Cool, man.
I always want to take pictures with my iPhone. It's amazing what these things can do.
They've gotten really good. And it's
amazing.
Beyond just like... It's the camera I have on me. No, there are legitimate content creation tools now. And like we just brought a little baby girl into the world. And in the hospital, I had a smartphone, I had a mirrorless camera, I had a DSLR. and
doubt.
the right tool for that job more often than not was my smartphone. It was the one that kept me out of the moment with the briefest window of time. Like, I'm trying to experience this moment of holding my newborn baby daughter, and trying to do that with the DSLR was the wrong tool. But the optics on my smartphone were good enough to actually capture that moment and allow me to participate in that moment. And so I think it's about time we started treating these things with more respect, because we live in an age where that might be the only camera someone owns, is the one bolted onto the back of their
Not to
phone.
go down that rabbit hole, but my wife took a picture of our newborn 3/4 years ago with her T-Mobile Dash phone. It was an awful camera.
Yeah.
It is one of the most touching, beautiful photos of our daughter. It's just a close-up of her hand around my finger. It's very grainy. She made it black and white, so the color was not in
Totally.
this photo. No one would ever look at this photo and go, "Oh, it looks like a cell phone."
How'd you take that from a T-Mobile Dash?
Terrible.
Ugh.
No, it's just with
That phone
just
kicked
as with
ass.
audio, it's about the actor. Just the voice actor. Just with photos, it's about the subject and how you shoot it. So yeah, I'm going to check out that book, man. Thank you.
All right.
Good luck.
All right. Well, that's going to pretty much wrap up things for the longest show we've ever done on the Body Shop.
Nailed it.
We'll talk a little bit more in the after show too, though. But we do have a few announcements here to conclude things away. Although we do have to run it. We don't have to run a voiceover extra spot, do we?
No.
Okay. Go read voiceover extra. It's fabulous.
That's where we get all the news on the show.
That's right. We'll return next week with the VOBS Fox News. Anyway, next week Stu Herrera is joining us.
Sweet.
Right on. Stu's awesome.
Great voice for
Love working with
CBS
Stu.
Radio and voiceover and promo and stuff. December 28th, we're having a birthday party because it's my birthday. We will have a few celebrities here, hopefully, if they get the invitations and go, yeah, we'll show up to that one. But that'll be
Kevin
fun.
Spacey's there. I'm in.
I know. I couldn't get to yours, Roy, so if you could get out here, that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a bunch of people for that. George is going to be in New York for that. So he
Actually,
didn't even get to be here.
I'll be in Virginia at that moment.
Oh, you'll be in Virginia.
I
Okay.
will.
Visiting your alma mater, probably.
And anybody in New York, 12/27 is the final WOHOP of 2015. So
You're keeping
come
them
on.
in business, aren't
Come
you?
on
For those who
down.
know.
All right. And then we're talking about maybe having a highlight show, but we've only done 17 voiceover body shops.
Yeah, there can't possibly be any highlights.
No, I think we just run this one
replay
again.
this show.
The lowlifes.
Just replay this show. Perfect.
There we go. All righty. Well, thanks to our donors of the week, Eric Aragoni. Anybody else in there, Jorge?
Oh gosh, so many people. Do you guys really want to sit through this list? Of course you do.
Yeah, that's why they do it.
We have David Smith, who is a regular donor all the time. Thank you, David. We've got something came in from one of our buddies, Ant Land. Anybody know who that guy is? Uncle Roy.
One of those. There you go.
Uncle Roy, thank you, buddy. Brian
welcome.
Roush. We've got donations from Graham Spicer
Thanks,
and
Graham.
Elizabeth Stewart.
Hit your camera there, George. 'cause
Oh, okay.
I was just mimicking your voice.
It's too hard.
He's doing a great job of the lip flap there, guys. That was like anime right there.
It's very difficult to do all these things at the same time, but
It's
I'm
like
trying
reverse
my
anime,
best.
actually, I should say.
But anyway, yes, we thank all of you who make sponsor or donate to the show. It's a small part of our overall budget, but it's a very important one because it really shows us how you guys care about what we do. And it helps us do little extra things, which we hope to do more of next year as we put so much effort into making this show come to life and make it better each week. And we'll finally start making some fun stuff that you guys can take home with you with our faces or our logo or something. Yeah. But thank you for all that support.
Yeah. Show logs. Jack DeGolia is sitting out there in the desert, banging his head against the wall for all the words that have come across in this particular 2 hours that we've been doing the show tonight. But the show logs are on our website, and every last word that we say has been carefully written down in blood.
Summarized, hopefully.
And you'll find it on our YouTube video, a repeat of this. Also, the podcast is on there, so this will keep you going for a long time, as we
Great
mentioned.
podcast show, too. Just to listen.
Yeah, the podcast, outstanding. And you can always watch the show. If you missed the show, listen, there's 16 other episodes besides this one you can watch on YouTube.
Yep.
So all the shows that George and I have done in this genre are available on YouTube. So go over there and watch those. Also, we're on the air at 2 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah, so if you do want to be here live, that's the time to tune in.
That's when you got to be here. Let's see. You want to be in our studio? Email us at theguys@vobs.tv. We like having a studio audience. Our audience tonight was Ari. He was Ari in here. was great. He was begging for carrots. That's his thing. He's been like, "Can I go out now? Go out in the backyard here." But we want to have a studio audience in here. Sometimes it makes it fun. So I think once a month we're going to get that in here. You don't need tickets. Write to us. We can fit about 5 or 6 people in here. You know, you go on, you see the Facebook page that says buy tickets. No, you don't have to buy tickets. Maybe we should.
It's gonna pay for the snacks.
Don't worry, it's taken care of. Let's see what else. The opening sequence tonight was the announcer.
Yes, it was.
A long time ago.
He
but
took some very creative license and replaced our music even.
Yes, don't do that. You know, as voice actors.
I didn't hear you say that, George.
You know,
You'll
as voice
get one.
actors, your job is voice, not the production stuff.
my
This is
job,
our show.
man.
I want to hear Mara's version of this without the music. Anyway, but make it your own. Don't imitate John Taylor. 1, because you can't, and 2, because we want to hear what you sound like. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. I'd like to thank our guests, Jordan Reynolds, Juan Carlos Bagnell, and Uncle Roy and Clifford Zellman hanging out there down in Dallas, Texas. It is a pleasure to see all of you, my good friends, and thanks for joining us tonight on the show. George?
Yeah, man.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else for me to say? I'm not even looking at the show notes.
I have no idea.
Okay. I think we
anyway,
should poke a fork in this one.
I think it's done. Anyway, I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is Voiceover
Body Shop.
Or VOBS.
BS. Capital BS.
All right, we'll see you all next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Yay, thank you, guys.
Bye.
Hey.
See ya.